Happy Wednesday, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Trading the Markets with Kris Bullock, aka Blasto Plas. Want to thank Nico for hosting a great episode last week. I'm back from a little time off, and I do want to mention to you guys, I have a little bit of an announcement here for those of you, if you've ever thought about earning money while helping Real Vision grow. Now is actually your chance to have your passion for Real Vision pay off. Raul just sat down with James Easton, Real Vision's first affiliate, to discuss how James came to be, Real Vision's first affiliate and how he's already making $5,000 in referrals. So you can actually learn more about that program and you can apply yourself to become a Real Vision affiliate. You can just visit the link below and apply. We want to see you guys all come through. We want to grow Real Vision with you and reward you for doing so. So make sure you check that out. We were here, we did our show yesterday because, Monday was a US holiday. So we talked over just so many different coins, so many different charts. And Kris, what has changed since yesterday?
Well, very little, honestly. But the good thing is it's playing out as I said it would, well, yesterday. So far, so good. We're on the right track. Prices are continuing to move up. If we just look at the chart here, let's start with Bitcoin. Basically, yeah, we're moving up. And my current base case that I talked about yesterday on the show is that we kind of run back up to around between 118, 120 range, sort of back where this, good chunk of horizontal price action is. I think we're going to get rejected there. I don't really see us going on to set a new high yet because of multiple reasons, which I'll get into. And I kind of expect us to roll back over, honestly, and maybe even come back down to, this previous horizontal range that we just bounced back out of. And then, later in September, I think that's when we'll really kind of rocket out to new highs. And so, yeah, I mean, and so far so good. We were quite oversold across the board and we're seeing reversals everywhere. And so that's why I was expecting to see a bit of a bump. But just based on, I know we talked about seasonality a little bit yesterday. I don't expect, while I do think September could still be a green month, I don't necessarily expect it to be, to the moon quite yet. I think that it'll be a bit muted, if anything. And that also is sort of, I guess, reinforced by some other like macro indicators that we're seeing. Things like the dollar index. It's kind of, for example, it's fighting to sort of break out. It continues to get rejected in this downtrend. I do think it'll ultimately roll back over, but it's not really going down to the degree that I expected it would. And so this sort of the dollar kind of fighting to remain strong, even though it continues to be rejected, is kind of holding its thumb down on the price of Bitcoin and things like that, crypto assets. But in other news, the PMI, a little bit of a bounce. We went from 48, 48 to basically 48.7. I do think this is going to continue. I do think eventually it does get above 50 in the next coming months, but we're not quite there yet. And so I think that's going to help things. And then just looking at M2, we've got the yellow line is the global M2, and then this green line is the 3-month rate of change. And I've been looking for this also to form a bottom and bounce back to the upside. But right now, basically the 3-month rate of change is kind of in a downtrend. And also the M2 itself is, yeah, it did poke a little bit higher high, but it's also mostly just been flat, I feel like, for the last month plus. And so we're seeing just a little bit of stagnation across the board from a macro standpoint. And as soon as this flips over and reverses back to the upside, that's going to give us a good indication that sort of the foot is back on the gas pedal, money's coming back into the system, and things are ready to run. But I don't think we're quite there yet. So that's why I come back to this chart here. And I think we're going to have a bit of just kind of a sideways choppy, a bit of an anemic September before things really get rolling. And so that's what I'm seeing. Now, that's my base case. Obviously, anything can happen. I think this is the most likely scenario, the most highest probability scenario. But of course, any announcement can throw a wrench in that at any given time. So outside of that, I think we're seeing a lot of strength in the alt markets, which we'll get into. There's a bunch of charts that have formed bottoms and confirmed reversals that I want to run through. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm seeing in a nutshell right out of the gate here.
Well said, Kris, and it's definitely something for us to look forward to and pay attention to in this typically historically red month. Although yesterday you actually went through the charts and we saw that it's not, while yes, that's kind of the meme, right? It's Rectember, red September.
Right.
It's not always red, right? So that's some great food for thought. And before we kind of dive into some of these reversals that Kris is seeing, I want to remind you all that are watching live, whether that's on the platform or on X, if you have any questions or any charts you want us to look at or any topics you want us to discuss, just put them into the live chat or in the comments on X, and we will get to as many as we can. So Kris, exciting stuff to hear that we got some reversals, confirmed reversals, right? Especially considering last week we had quite the dip and quite the volatility on the downside. So why don't we start diving into some of those and seeing what the charts say?
Right now, definitely the strength. I feel like even though Bitcoin did confirm a reversal, which we can see on this chart here, and this is the trading alpha indicator set that I have been loving and have been using for a long time. And it flipped a bottom signal here on Sunday and then quickly confirmed it with a higher high really on Monday yesterday, and has gone on to set higher highs. But outside of that, really the strength has been largely with Ethereum and Solana. Those of the sort of big mega caps, those ones have just been really, really solid. They didn't even need to form reversals because they didn't even really go into corrective phases to begin with. So it's like, I'm not even going to get to those yet. But so Bitcoin confirmed reversal. I'll just kind of rapid fire through some of these real quick. We got SWI confirmed reversal here. We got the reversal signal with a higher high again today. XRP, same thing, bottom signal, confirmed reversal, higher high again today. So, we're seeing all of these, like LOFI, for example, LOFI blowing up, confirmed reversal, big, immediate trend reversal. Like it's put in a 40% candle yesterday, another 20% candle today. Something happened with LOFI and it's just, to the moon. What else do we got? Syrup's another one, solid, looking like it's wanting to break out. It's been really kind of low volatility lately, but we got a solid, thrust upward arrow here, kind of confirmed, uptrend happening. Say is another one that I noticed as I was kind of digging through here. Another confirmed reversal. We got the bottom signal here, higher high again here. Deep was another one that came up. It's kind of same thing, bottom signal here, higher high here. So Pengu is another one. We can talk about Pengu for a second here. Yeah, I mean, immediate confirmed reversal, bottom signal here, big bullish divergence flag coming up here, big higher high again the next day. And then REKT also, as we know, is crushing it. REKT 2, bottom signal here, much higher high again here. So again, there's a ton, but those, that's just a handful kind of to rapid fire through. Like, I think what we're seeing across the board is bottoming reversal and, we're going to run back up. We're seeing that mentioned with Bitcoin, but it's happening with everything. And so, and REKT, we want to talk about a little bit because there's good news going on with REKT.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'd be remiss if we didn't mention that big news coming from REKT Drinks yesterday. They announced a strategic partnership with GameSquare that will include adding $2 million of REKT to GameSquare's digital asset treasury. So just absolutely enormous stuff going on behind the scenes at REKT. And I would, I think we can probably, just knowing that team, knowing who's working in REKT Drinks and just that ecosystem, we can probably anticipate some more great strategic partnerships in the pipeline. So definitely want to just give a shout out to Ovi and Mando and just everyone in that ecosystem, because that is just some huge, huge news. Now, Kris, I do want to talk to you because I think it is important to mention, because while I don't want to single out World Liberty Financial, we had a great little kind of, I guess, disclaimer, if you will, about these types of coins that drop with such high valuations and kind of what the smartest play on those is, right? And let me hint, it's definitely not chasing them when they drop and succumbing to FOMO. But yeah, Kris, why don't we take a look at those charts and kind of echo some of what we said yesterday? Because I think it's really important for people that are feeling like they may have missed the boat or weren't on the inside of something like this to kind of hear.
Sure, sure. So yeah, and like you said, not singling out World Liberty, they're just kind of the latest example of this trend, and that trend being there's all of these tokens that come out that they're called VC tokens basically, and by that I mean there's tons of actual VC investment that buy in like a pre-sale or get access or buy allocations to tokens way before they ever go on sale to the public, and so in order to kind of um, be a viable investment for these VCs, these tokens launch with like multi-billion-dollar valuations right out of the gate, and they launch on every top-tier exchange on day one, like Coinbase and Binance and Kraken and all of those, like immediately on day one. And what happens is by the time they launch on these exchanges, they launch at valuations that are often 10x what these VCs bought in their pre-sale, or not just VCs, but just lots of insiders have access to pre-sales where they buy these funds before they go on sale to the public. And so they're basically up 10x immediately as soon as the token launches. And so anybody that buys this token on the public exchanges through the public launch are essentially exit liquidity. They're immediately upside down in their trade, and they're going to be upside down for potentially even months before sort of the bottom is established and sort of a real world valuation is established for these assets. And meanwhile, these insiders just walk away with millions of dollars in profit, and before trading even began, basically. And so, and again, it's not specific to just World Liberty. That's one example, but there's anytime basically you see a token launch on every top tier exchange at a multi-billion-dollar valuation on day one, honestly, that's kind of one of the problems with this space as it stands currently, and that's something that you should avoid like the plague. That's never going to be a good investment for you. Like, you need to, again, wait weeks or even months for the actual real world market to establish a valuation for this token, and oftentimes it's much lower than what it launches at. And we can see there's countless examples of these that I could just run through. If you go into like just pull up like CoinMarketCap or CoinGecko or whatever, and I could point out 15 or 20 of them in the top 100 that were these kind of VC tokens that launched at multi-billion-dollar valuations that are trading at a fraction of their price now. And we need this to go away, basically. This is not a good model. This is not a good, like, this kind of came about as a product of like the ICO clampdown and the initial, we had the ICOs back in the day. And, as we know, the government sort of put the kibosh on that. And so the space has been trying different ways and different models to sort of launch new tokens, and they kind of came up with this, but they need to go back to a different model. There's other tokens that launch that are called fair value launches, where they basically launch at zero. They don't launch at multi-billion, they launch at zero, and everybody has equal access to the token, whether you're a billionaire, venture capitalist, or you're, a brand new person who just, started crypto today and you've got $20 in your pocket. You have the same equal access to this token as those guys. And that's what we need to go back to. And those are the tokens that you want to be investing in, the ones that start from the bottom and work their way up, as opposed to start at the top and work their way down. And so, just as kind of a general rule of thumb, I would say it's not really in your best interest. It's the odds are stacked against you if you go chasing after these VC tokens that launch at these multi-billion-dollar valuations. You're just gonna get hosed, 99 times out of 100, and it's just not worth it. There's better ways to go about it. There's better assets to be in, and don't go doing this. Don't chase this stuff.
Yeah. Translation, honestly, if you were not a part of the pre-sale, you are the exit liquidity.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
keep that
If you can get in on the
mind.
pre-sale, then go for it.
Yeah.
But if you're not on the pre-sale, then yeah, you're somebody else's profit, and that's all there is to it, basically.
Yeah, well said. I think that was just an important topic to cover, because this definitely wasn't the first, and it won't be the last. Unfortunately, won't be the last. So keep that in mind when the next one comes. So Kris, I want to circle back to a bunch of those charts we were talking about these confirmed reversals here, because Robin from the platform has a question about those assets. Are most of these assets still technically in a downtrend, though?
Well, sure. Technically, yes. Depending on the time frame you want to look at them on a daily time frame, yes, they are still on in a downtrend. But if you're looking at them on a weekly time frame, many of them are not. And so for that, what I use is basically this thing called the bull market support band, which is effectively the 20-week moving average. And as long as the 20-week moving average is pointed up and to the right, then the larger sort of secular uptrend is still intact. And that's really what's most important. Lots of stuff is going to have sort of a corrective kind of counter trend correction in the midst of a larger uptrend. As we know, charts ebb and flow. And so as long as the larger weekly uptrend didn't get broken, then really it's fine. Now, there are instances where that did happen. And I think SWE is actually one of them, unfortunately, where the larger weekly uptrend kind of did get a little bit broken. Now, granted, it wasn't a very strong trend to begin with. It's mostly been plotting sideways for well, most of the year now. And it did establish an uptrend for a bit, like starting from the June lows, it kind of ran up really good. And we can see the band itself was pointed up and to the right, but we had a bit of a crossover here and it's now more just flat. And so this is an example, SWE is an example of one where the larger uptrend did get broken. And this is something to be wary of. However, I am still bullish on SWE overall. It still has been setting higher highs and higher lows. It just has been swinging, oscillating a lot wider than some of the other stuff. But that's an example of one that maybe, you want to look out for. Whereas conversely, let's say like Solana, the uptrend is still well intact. It's pointed up and to the right. It never really even had much of a corrective phase at all. So that looks good. XRP was one that I mentioned that had a reversal signal. XRP is still, granted it's slight, but the uptrend is still intact. So again, those are what I'm looking for. We can, if there's any specific one you want me to look at, we can. But again, as long as the larger uptrend is intact, that's what's most important.
Yeah, well, actually, so while SWE and Solana are still fresh in our mind, this actually is perfect segment way into a question from Miller on the website. Should I sell? So I'm heavy into SWE. Should I sell that into Bitcoin, Sol, or ETH?
Well, definitely not into Bitcoin because we know Bitcoin dominance has likely peaked and most of the alts are going to outpace Bitcoin. I expect SWE to outpace Bitcoin for the duration too. Now, compared to Solana or ETH, it gets a little bit more muddy in terms of if SWE will ultimately outpace either one of those two. And honestly, it's, you're taking a bit of a gamble there. SWE is definitely the newcomer in that equation. They're the ones that are the furthest out the risk curve in that equation, but I do still think that they're doing well. I mean, here's another chart I've got to kind of illustrate SWE in terms of its uptrend. Let me kind of switch this back to like a weekly time frame here. Hold on, reset. Okay, so hold on. Okay, see this, we've got this trend line here. This long-term trend line that established, kind of middle of last year, and it pretty much has held. I mean, it touched here, it had a little bit of a breakdown here, it's had a little bit of a wobble again here, but it's holding steady on its 50-week moving average at the moment. And it's sort of, again, it's breaking down somewhat out of its wedge pattern, but I do still like the fact that it's continued to set a higher high here than this high here, and it's set higher lows each time it's come down and corrected. So the pattern suggests that it's still going to run up, it's still going to experience a bit of a breakout and go on to new all-time highs. And I really do believe that. And the fact that we're seeing, just from like a fundamental standpoint, we're seeing the adoption happen. We're seeing the total value locked on their DeFi ecosystem continue to grow. It's up to 2 billion now. It's higher than a lot of other blockchains that are older than SWE right now. So we're definitely seeing the adoption take place. And so I continue to be a believer in SWE, but we don't know how it's ultimately going to play out. And so I don't know that I would sell SWE. Maybe if you're uncomfortable, if it's keeping you up at night, maybe move a chunk of that SWE into some of those other assets to kind of balance it out and give you a little bit more equilibrium. But honestly, I don't really see SWE going away or anything like that. So I guess do with that what you will.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Miller. Another question comes from Sarah on the website. So following that reversal signal, how long does price typically move up for? Is it just a short-term indicator?
It doesn't really, it doesn't convey that. It doesn't tell you how long that reversal is going to be. That you sort of need other context to establish that. And just looking at like Bitcoin, for example, it doesn't throw these out very often. The last time it did was sort of at the end of the previous kind of 60-day cycle low. And, you know, it ran for whatever, 40, 45, 50 days or whatever. There's other charts where it varies. Sometimes that top signal can, oh wait, I'm sorry, this is on the weekly. Or no, it is daily, never mind. So yeah, it doesn't, we don't know. That's gonna be more based on like cyclical patterns and macro data and stuff like that. But we do know that basically what it is telling us is that the chart was heavily oversold, that momentum has shifted to the upside, and it needs to sort of do that oscillation. And how long that oscillation is, we don't know necessarily.
All right, thank you for the question, Sarah. All right, Kris, this next question comes about that alpha bundle bottom signal. I use the same, this question comes from JF on the platform. I use the same indicator, but my understanding is the bottom signal needs to be confirmed with consecutive green dots after the indicator on the daily. Can you comment or shed some insight on that?
Um, I'd have to go back and double check. My understanding, and I could be wrong, but my understanding was the confirmation is either the following candle or the one after that. One of those two at least needs to wick higher than the highest point of that bottom signal candle. I could be wrong. Forgive me if I am, but that was basically my understanding. Now you've got me questioning it, and I'm gonna have to go double check when we're done here. But yeah, I guess forgive me if that's the case. But anyway, regardless, I do think that even just based on Bitcoin alone and its reversal pattern and the larger sort of cyclical patterns that we follow, I do still think that everything will be confirmed in due time. You know, we are due a bounce, and we are seeing that play out. So yeah.
All right, thank you, JF, for that question. All right, next one comes from Guy on the platform. Would a rate reduction in the US kickstart the bull run for the end of the year? Well, Guy, that is the hope. It better.
That's the $1 million question for sure. I suspect it will certainly be a kick in the pants, no doubt. And it'll have larger ramifications in terms of the actual sort of mechanics that it impacts in terms of like the liquidity and just injecting more money into the system, making borrowing cheaper, all of that stuff. So yes, sort of from a psychological standpoint, it'll have an immediate impact likely, but then from more of a mechanical standpoint, it will have a longer lasting impact. And we know it's not just going to be this one rate cut either. We know that we've got multiple rate cuts kind of forthcoming over the course of the next 3 to 6 months likely. So I guess the short answer is yes, but for different reasons, on different timeframes.
Awesome, Guy. Thank you for the question. Okay, we have a few more here. So Bernardo wants us to take a look at the ONDO chart. So today ONDO launched the global markets. Can you talk about it and take a look at the chart? Looking good according to Bernardo.
Yes. I can't speak to the announcement since I didn't read anything about it, but we can certainly dig into the chart and see what it says. So yeah, I mean, definitely in terms of we bottom signal here, immediate reversal candle. That's as bullish as you can get. Another good green candle today. We've also got a bit of a volatility squeeze here, and the fact that we've got 3 good green candles in a row combined with this volatility squeeze tells me it's likely going to continue to resolve to the upside. Plus, again, we know from cyclicality, we know everything is likely going to resolve to the upside. So yeah, ONDO looks great right now. Nice bounce off of the track line here. I think that this track line likely will switch back to green probably sooner rather than later. And, I think ONDO is a good looking chart. I like the fact too that it didn't really correct as much as others to begin with. It didn't have as much of a sort of deeper corrective phase. So, and we know ONDO is a solid business. Nothing against ONDO. I think that what they're doing over there is really good. And I think that that's going to continue to be a really solid project going forward. I don't know that the chart, or that rather the price action, is necessarily gonna kind of blow everything away. I don't know that it's gonna be as much of maybe a world-beating investment as some other things, but I do think it's a really solid, stable, viable crypto business that will continue to go up in value. So yeah, I like ONDO.
Bernardo, thanks for the question. All right, last question of the day comes from Alex on the website as well. Will the coins you guys recommend in your watch list top when the market tops, or do you think they will keep running? For example, Arrow and REKT looks good from a TA point of view. What are your thoughts on that, Kris?
Are we talking like short-term top or like long-term sort of 4-year
I guess
cycle top?
he's saying when like kind of the cycle tops. Do we think these are going to
Oh,
top with the cycle top? Are they going to run after? Do you think they're going to top before that comes? What's your kind of thinking there? I know it's very hard to kind of put a time on it.
yeah. I mean, that's tricky. Generally, in terms of like shorter term cycles, like 60-day cycles or even weekly cycles, um, alts generally fall in line pretty closely with it. I mean, definitely on a larger 4-year cycle time frame, certain alts are going to way outpace everything, and we know from historical patterns that likely alts in a general sense as a sector tend to run much longer than Bitcoin does past Bitcoin's final peak, like, in both 2017 and 2021, both times in 2021, alts ran for, 3, 4, 5 weeks after Bitcoin finally peaked. And so from that standpoint, yeah, alts, I mean, historically have ran, but on a short-term 60-day cycle basis, I think they tend to mirror Bitcoin pretty closely. Even if the oscillations are greater, the beta is greater, they might move higher or lower than, say, Bitcoin is going to move. But from just a general directional standpoint, they tend to mirror Bitcoin pretty closely. So if and when Bitcoin does peak and or bottom, I think that, the rest of the market does too. And we can see that across the board. Like, even just looking at like Bitcoin, everything bottomed on Sunday, basically. Like on every chart that I look at with all the bottom signals, they all have a bottom signal on the same day, Bitcoin included and every other one of them. So that's kind of just generally how it works.
All right. Thank you for the question, Alex. Everyone, that's going to do it for us today on this week's edition of Trading the Markets. Before I throw it to Kris for any like final thoughts and some things we should think about and look into for the weekend, what I want to leave you guys with is, especially if you have Pengu, go play around in the abstract ecosystem. Go to abs.xyz, learn how to play, learn how to swap some things. And not a huge amount. You don't have to do a huge amount. Go play some of the games, get some rewards, because that should have a reward or a benefit for you down the line when Abstract starts, doing some of these activations that they have planned in their roadmap. So, people that play around in that ecosystem and earn rewards in Abstract through their profile are only going to be benefited from that. So, go ahead, check that out, play some games. Bring, if you have kids, have them play the games, so they can get you the rewards. Have some fun with it, and hopefully you will see the benefit of that on the back end. That's what I will leave you all with. Kris, I'm going to throw it to you for anything we should look for this upcoming weekend and into next week.
First of all, it sounds like I need to go do that too. I haven't actually looked at that Pengu ecosystem yet. So yeah, that's on my radar for sure. But again, I just kind of want to make sure everybody sort of has proper expectations, for the coming weeks and in the weekend too. I do expect to see, continued upward price action, but don't get too carried away with it. Don't think that, again, my base case is not we're going to rip onto new all-time highs like this weekend or next week even. I do think that we're still due a bit of chop over the course of September, even if September ends on a higher high, which I think there's a very high chance it will. I mean, keep in mind, September opened at 108. So like, it doesn't have to be a whole lot higher than 108. Well, it doesn't have to be any higher than 108 to actually be a green month. And right now we're way above 108. And I think likely we'll stay above 108. So I do generally expect September to be a green month, but I just don't expect yet a full breakout to sort of a new market structure yet. So keep your expectations in check. Don't get too euphoric. If you see us ripping up to 120, just kind of know that, you know, we're due for some chop still, and it'll come. It'll come. The conditions are unfolding, and we will see them play out in Q4 still. But again, just keep a level head for now.
All right, everyone, that's it for this week. We'll be back on Monday for our live TA session in Discord and live on the platform. And of course, we'll be back again next week for trading the markets. Until then, check out the Real Vision affiliate program. Go apply, you know, see how you can become a Real Vision affiliate and earn some money along the way. And then I also real quickly want to mention we had a fantastic meetup in Austin on Friday. So shout out to Esvin and our you know, the whole Real Vision family that went to the Austin meetup and made it such a great event. We have a meetup coming up in Australia, Sydney, on September 11th. We have a meetup coming up in Dubai on September 26th. And we have more meetups in the pipeline. So head over to realvision.com/meetups to sign up and be aware of any upcoming meetups. Until then, we'll see you guys on Monday. Don't fuck this up. Have a great week, everyone.